Hi everyone. Hey, this week's art activity is a super fun paper project. This is actually going to be just folded paper, and the term for the art of paper folding is called origami. It's a Japanese term, and what we're going to be doing is creating a husky doing nothing more than just folding paper. So we're not going to need any tape or glue or scissors. This is strictly about folding paper, and that's really the essence of origami. Is it's just different types of folds that you use so that at the end you have a really interesting object. And oftentimes it's animals, sometimes it's flowers or other objects, but I think you'll have a lot of fun with this. So I want to get you started by pointing out that you're going to need to have a super square piece of paper. I am working with a 7-inch piece of paper. In my examples that I'm going to show you at the end, I used a 6-inch piece of paper, but I went a little bit bigger for this just because the small piece, it was a little bit hard, I think, to relate through the video, so I'm going a little bit bigger with this. You can adjust the size accordingly. What's most important is that it's square. I would not recommend going smaller than 6 inches, however. Okay, I'm using just a regular piece of copy paper like you would use on a printer. I would not recommend that you use construction paper. It's a little bit too thick, but you can also use some other materials that I'll talk about in the end. But I found that this white copy paper worked really well. So I'm gonna start by just folding this. One of the things with, doing anytime you're folding really is making sure that it's lined up and it doesn't move. So I'm going to bring this up here to the top corner, and I'm going to hold that to make sure it doesn't shift. I'm just going to pull my fingers back here and give it a nice little swipe to the right and one to the left. And if you go back in with your fingernail, you can give it a really nice tight crease, because that's going to be very important for making sure that all of this is held together, since we don't have any glue or tape involved. My next step is to take my corner on the right and go up here to the top again. So I'm actually going to be doing both sides the same way. Once I have this in the right spot, remember, hold it in place before you start creasing. You may even want to ask somebody to hold it for you if that's easier, but I think if you get a really nice reinforcement there and give this then just an easy fold, you don't have to go super tight yet, because you're going to want to make sure that this left side is even. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll go back and give it a really nice tight crease. So I've got my left side here that looks pretty good. Now you can see here what this looks like. I've got these two flaps that come up. I got a little bit of a bump here, so I'm going to need to adjust that before I give it my nice tight creases. The other thing that I have found that can be super helpful, maybe even using like the edge of a pen or something like that to just run across an edge, helps get a really nice tight crease. I found that was really helpful when I was making my examples. I want to make sure that that's nice and even here before I go to my next step. All right, so these flaps here that are facing me, I'm now going to reverse, and I'm going to put on the underside. So I'm going to make just the smooth part here on top, and you can see I've got my little flaps that are open here on the right. I'm going to bring my top corner down to the bottom corner. So I'm actually along those lines where I made my little triangles. I'm just going to separate those now. And again, I want to make sure that my corner here is nice and even, all lined up really well before I go in and crease. And now as I'm starting to add more layers, I really want to make sure that my creases are nice and tight. So I am going to go in and give that another little crease here with my pen edge, so we'll stay nice and tight. All right, so I've got my open edges along here. These are going to stay kind of pointed up. Do you see how those are pointed up? My folds are actually down here at the bottom now. And I'm ready to start making the tail. So I'm going to come to this left corner, and I'm going to fold this in. It's probably going to be a little less than an inch or so. And again, where I'm starting to get so many layers here, it wants to just kind of fold back out. This is the piece that's going to help this the husky stand up. So I am going to go in there and give that another nice little tight reinforcement on my edge there, because that's going to help make that stand up on its own. I'm ready to start making the legs and the face now. And this is really actually super simple. You'll notice here, if you kind of open it up a little bit, it kind of looks like a W. This point here is kind of where I'm going to separate that into two halves. So I'm going to set this back down here, and I'm going to fold the left side here. So it includes just this one left side of my center point. And I'm going to start folding this over. And what's going to happen now is you'll see that this is going to make a left leg and a right leg here. And so I'm going to make sure it lines up nice and straight along the bottom as I go to crease. And see how this is kind of pointing up? This I'm going to need to fold down in order to make his face. So I'll go back in and I'll reinforce my fold there. But now I'm going to come back in here and just let that point lay flat down on the legs. And there's his face. So in order to make this stand up really well, I've got to make sure that fold isn't going to really go anywhere. And it should be able to then just kind of stand up now on its own. So whoops, there's my Husky. I do want to show you a few examples that I already made earlier. These are the ones that I mentioned. I was working with 6-inch paper. So my first one here, you can see that I actually decided to go in and see what it might look like if I were to give it some fur. I just used actually my Sharpie here, whoops, to add some fur along the bottom and some details on his face and his ears and even back here on the back side of his tail. So I thought that was kind of fun. I also experimented using some newspaper because I thought, you know, all the black ink and words on there kind of made it look textured and more like fur. So this worked really well. The weight of the paper was great. And then I just went in and I took some white paper and cut some little pieces for ears and the white fur of his, you know, chest, and added the little piece up on his face so you'd be able to see the details of his eyes and nose and snout. And then the last one, I just thought I would kind of experiment having some fun with some old wrapping paper that I found, and that worked out really well too. And really, with origami, typically it's just plain paper, and so you don't have to add any details to it. I mean, that's traditionally with the folded paper of origami, it's either just plain white or it's just plain with color. And the way the folds work, that's what you see. The detail is really in the shape that is created by all of the folds. But I thought you might like to experiment taking a little bit further and having some fun just kind of playing around with different types of paper. So I wanted you to see some different options that are out there if you want to embellish it a little bit more and make it a little bit more creative and more your own. So I'd love to see what you end up with. Keep those pictures coming. I have loved getting the pictures that have been sent to me so far. So feel free to email them to me, or if you want to take a picture and drop it in the comments in the Hutchings Elementary Facebook page where all the specials teachers have their links for our activities, that would be a great option too. So most importantly, I want you to have fun. So good luck.